All right, good morning. It is Monday, March 7th, and here are the top three things that are moving the markets. We need to talk about crude oil hit $130 over the weekend. So we'll talk about what does this mean for the market. Also, today is day 11 of the Russia-Ukraine war. So what's happening there? And also this week, the all-important inflation gauge, the CPI. Well, it hit new highs. So a lot to talk about. But before we dive in and show you what's moving the markets, if this is your first time here, hi. I'm Marcus Heitkotter. This is my head coach, Mark Hodge. And together, we have more than 47 years of trading experience. And every morning, we sift through a mountain of news websites, newsletters, and reports. And then we take the most important news and go live right here to share with you what you need to know as you head into your trading day. If this is your first time here, I know it can be overwhelming, but don't worry, we have a special link just for you that I will put in the description, and that's a great place to get started. But Mark, gosh, let's take a look at the market. Where should we even start? I mean, we probably should start and talk about crude oil, right? So
I would agree.
let's do this. Let's just bring up crude oil here because holy cannoli. I mean, look at this. Hit what? $130 last night. Got to bring up a
Yeah,
12-minute chart here.
I mean that is a huge move over the weekend with Friday's close. Friday's close was 115 a barrel plus, but jumping another 13%, pulling back, but still huge move there.
All right. So what's causing this move? Why so high? I mean, we know that there's the conflict in Russia Ukraine conflict, the war that is going on there. But what happened over the weekend?
You know, it's I think that the biggest issue here with crude oil right now is that many people believe that crude oil and exports from Russia were not going to be touched, right? Because approximately 3% of crude oil from Russia makes its way to the U.S., but in Europe, it's 50%, and so or sorry, 50% of the exports of Russia are going to Europe, and so that was kind of off the table because Europe relies so much on crude oil exports. But now companies are smacking Russia with gosh,
Sanctions?
it's Monday morning, Marcus.
Let's call them sanctions for now.
Yeah, yeah. Let's call them that. Anyway, this it seemed like for at the beginning that crude oil was off the table, right? We're not going to touch it because it could trickle down and have a bigger issue with the countries that need oil. And right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. And crude oil has been spiking and just going crazy.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the conflict. So I mean, over the weekend there were planned evacuations from the city of Mariupol. I had to look it up where exactly this city is. So it's here in the yeah, basically in the south. What is it? South east of Ukraine. So this where there should have been evacuations and there was a negotiated ceasefire, but this didn't last, right? So apparently the Russian army violated the ceasefire here, and this is where. Let's see what's happening here. Today, delegations from both sides will hold a third round of talks today, but Putin already said that the war will continue until Ukraine accepts his demands and ends his resistance. And we know that this is probably not going to happen here, right? So this is where there's very little hope for the talks that are happening here today.
Yeah, and that's the other thing here. We're going into day 11, and uh, right now it seems like there's no end in sight. So commodities spiking, crude oil spiking, uh, gas spiking, the highest that we've seen since 2008, with the national average topping $4 a gallon, according to AAA. And 18 states where gas is greater than $4, and in California, the statewide average sitting at $5.29 a gallon.
Jeez, you guys there in California,
I
unbelievable.
know.
So I mean, we hear more and more companies basically, yeah, suspending operations in Russia. So latest news here from Visa and Mastercard this morning. So Visa said that all the cards issued by Russian banks will no longer be supported, and any cards that are issued outside of Russia will no longer work in Russia. So Visa down 1.4% because obviously this is impacting the company. But I mean, I think it's great that they're imposing more sanctions here. Also, MasterCard, same deal. American Express said the same deal. They said that they would suspend operations. They haven't said yet when, but that they're planning to do it. Visa and MasterCard have already. And then we also have PayPal that said, okay, suspending operations in Russia. So trying to cut off the payment flow there.
Yeah, we saw with the bank side with the Swift system, and now individual companies definitely taking a role.
Yeah, but this is where we also see that Bitcoin. Let's take a look at the overnight action here. So Bitcoin right now is rallying. I mean, Bitcoin had a pretty rough weekend here. If you look at the daily chart, we see that over the weekend, a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit all over the place. This morning, right now, up 1.7%. Ethereum up 3.3%. I believe that this is where traders are thinking, okay, if Visa card, if MasterCard, if American Express, PayPal, if all of these guys are cutting off Russia here, that there might be, increased activity in the cryptocurrencies.
And that is the story that was out there a week ago when we saw that big spike. And I think that now this rally is kind of being balanced by concerns over whether or not we will impose in strict restrictions on Bitcoin. Right? The government's talked about it for years, how to regulate it, and I think that yes, it could be how Russians and the government might move money, but at the same time, maybe the restrictions now are more likely to be done.
You will see there's some pressure on Coinbase where they say, okay, Coinbase, you need to stop accepting accounts and payments and transfers from and to Russia here. And Coinbase thus far has said, no, we are not doing that unless we are forced by law to do this. So we'll see. I mean, Coinbase pretty much flat here going into the opening and pre-market trading. Well, we got to look at the RSX, right? I mean, this is where Russian markets are still closed, and the RSX is basically tracking of what would happen if the Russian stock markets open again. And I mean, trading here at $5. I mean, it can't. I mean, there's obviously still some downside. Or some more room to the downside, but that's pretty bad here already, going from 25 to 5. I
Yeah,
mean, the
that's
Russian economy is really getting hurt right now.
on many levels. Yeah. They tried to create a situation where they had that independence, but at some point, when the entire financial global system is trying to slap sanctions in one way or another, it's getting ugly.
Yeah. So let's take a look at the calendar here in the US. So this week on Thursday, we have the all important CPI data. That's um, yeah, that's the Fed's favorite inflation gauge, and it's the last reading right before the Fed meeting that is happening next week. So where right now market participants are saying, okay, the Fed is probably gonna raise interest rates by 0.25%, and this is also what Powell said last week. So, what do you think? Well, what do you think will happen here with the CPI this week? Will we see new records?
I do think that we'll see new records, but I don't think it's going to be jumping off the charts like we had before. Because again, it was from last month. The interesting thing is going to be how crude oil makes its way into the inflation discussion, and if this big rally in crude oil over the last week or two is short lived or if it's here to stay. I mean, some people were talking about $200 a barrel oil. But yeah, I think CPI data is going to come in and make a new record.
Yeah, I mean, it's expected to increase for last month by 0.8%. The core CPI, which is excluding oil, is actually expected to decrease. So previous months was 0.6% jump, and now only 0.5%. So it really seems that crude oil here is a major factor.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But you see, this
So
is
I
where
mean,
we also have a problem that we have all of, you mentioned it, all of the commodities are just jumping up like crazy. I mean, here, look at copper futures. I mean, Copper has gone crazy. I mean, right now pulling back a little bit, but here in overnight trading hit more than $886 right now, pulling back. And I mean, pretty much all of the metals. Nickel, if you look at nickel, I mean, whoa, what a move
Wow.
here! Look at this, up 40%, 37% here. Aluminum, how do you call it? Aluminium. It's a difficult word.
Aluminum. Yeah, yeah. No, you
It's a
got it
difficult
right.
word for a German to pronounce. Okay. Aluminium. There we go in German. I mean, also had a huge spike right now, pulling back a little bit. But another big one is wheat, right? So wheat was shooting up. Look at this. I mean, from $8 a bushel to now $12 a bushel. That's a 50% increase that we see here. I mean,
I
all of this could impact the inflation numbers.
Sure, and I think that, wheat's gone limit up the last 5 or 6 days straight, so that makes it difficult for futures traders because when you see it go limit up like that, f it stops trading.
Yeah. I mean, but thus far, if you look at the S&P, thus far, the reaction to all of this has been muted. I mean, the invasion started on February 24th. So this is right here on this long bar that came to the downside. And ever since, I mean, last week, if you look at this, yeah, we had pretty wild swings to the upside and the downside, but it is in a range. And this is why we need to talk about. So will the markets crash this week with all of this pressure mounting with now day 11 of the Russia-Ukraine war, with the CPI data coming in this week, with commodity prices spiking, with crude oil prices spiking? I mean, what do you think? Will we see a crash here this week?
Marcus, I don't think so. I think we're going to continue to see volatility, and we might trade into lower ranges that we've had. But I one thing that we hear time and time again is that the economic impact on the U.S. is actually minimal. There will be a huge impact on oil and gas stocks, but the economic impact to the U.S. is minimal, supposedly. And based on that chart, I would say that that would be true. I mean, look at what the chart's telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I draw the on the S&P 500 here, the 4300 line. It seems that the 4300 level is holding pretty well. I mean, after this shocker of the invasion, where we had a huge down spike, but other than this, it seems to hold up here as some sort of support.
It looks like it. So volatility is here to stay. I don't think volatility is going anywhere until after the Fed at a minimum. But
Yeah, if you're looking
we
at the
did
VIX,
get
the fear
something.
gauge here, I mean, we are at elevated levels. We are trading solidly above 30 and have been pretty much for the past week here. Ever since the invasion, we have been trading solidly above 30 because there's definitely a lot of uncertainty here. All right, I got to talk about what's happening here. One of the stocks that I saw jumped like crazy is BBBY. Meme stocks are back because up this morning 97%. You got to
Huge.
zoom out so that you see. I mean, it has been trading here around what between I want to say 13 and 20, and this morning trading at 32. What's happening here?
Yeah, so this one went nuts pre-market after GameStop chairman Ryan Cohen revealed he had almost a 10% share in the company through his investment company RC Ventures. He did write in a letter to Bed Bath's board that he believes the retailer is struggling to reverse market share losses and to navigate supply chain woes, and that he believes that a full sale would make sense, as well as some strategic alternatives, including separating Bye Bye Baby.
Uh, Bye bye baby? Really?
I Bye
Like
Bye
bye
Baby.
bye baby? That's a horrible name. Why would you call something bye bye baby? this,
Well,
this
it's
just
not
sounds like a
cell
bad name
baby.
choice.
It was Yeah, hey, another mover, Marcus, this one's kind of fun to talk about, Oxy. We talked about oil and gas, and look at Occidental Petroleum. Did you bring this up earlier?
Yeah, yeah, that's Oxy.
Well, I also wanted to mention that, last week, um, Warren Buffett, he actually bought almost a 10% stake. The companies need to announce if they buy 10% or more. He bought 9% last week when it was rallying, going crazy. So Berkshire Hathaway now owns 9%, but with warrants, some options to buy, they own almost 17% if those warrants were executed. So they had to reveal that. So Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway are now nice owners of Oxy.
Yeah. All right, let's
And
take a
Carl,
look at the
I
pre-market
found out
action
of
here.
it.
Let's see what's happening. So this also large swings. I brought up the E-mini S&P so that we see where do we go into the open. So huge drop last night. Because investors and traders tried to digest all the news from the weekend and saw crude oil spiking and thought, oh dear Lord, that's not good at all. And we see markets are super nervous. Then this morning, a reversal to the upside, and this is when we saw pretty much the exact opposite of crude oil. So as crude oil is going down, the indices like ES and also the Nasdaq are moving higher. So they were down like as much as 1.9% in overnight trading. Right now we're looking at we can almost call this a flat opening with the Nasdaq being down 0.25%.
I'd agree. I mean, 0.25% right now is flat with the swings that we've had recently.
With these days. So E-mini S&P pointing to a 0.25% lower opening, but on the upswing right now, Nasdaq the same 0.25% lower opening, the Dow 0.3%. So the Dow the weakest of the three indices here going into the opening. So I mean, one thing is for sure, there's never a dull moment right now in the markets with so much going on. So it's important that you have a plan as you go into the markets. Now we got to jump over because this week we have our virtual boardroom where we trade the whole week with our mastermind members. And if you would like to know how we trade these crazy markets, take a look at these videos here that we link for you on this screen here, and consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you in the next update.
Happy trading, everybody.